I 32F never wanted to set foot in that house again. The sprawling, ivy-wrapped Georgian estate in upstate New York where I grew up always smelled like expensive polish and decay. That house had teeth. It chewed through my childhood, spat out my teenage years, and left behind an echo of who I used to be. So when I got the call that my father, Theodore Halbrook, business mogul, philanthropist, and monster, had dropped dead from a stroke in his wine cellar, I didn't cry. I poured a drink. We hadn't spoken in 7 years. I got on the flight from LA not out of mourning, but obligation. My half-brother Gavin, 34M, left a voice message that sounded like he was trying hard not to laugh. Just thought you should know. The reading's Monday. Might be worth your time, or not. Who knows with Dad, right? Yeah. Gavin always had that razor-edge smirk in his voice. Dad remarried when I was 16. Elaine, 57F now, a frosty ex-model with killer cheekbones and dead eyes, showed up like a perfume ad with a sharp tongue. Gavin came as part of the package deal. We were never siblings, we were predators sizing each other up in a gold-plated cage. He always wanted what he thought was his. I just wanted out. Fast forward to the day of the will reading. The lawyer, Paul Atkinson, 60 SM, read it slow like he wanted the tension to hang in the air. Elaine was draped in black silk like a mourning spider. Gavin wore a Rolex and a grin, but then Paul said the words that turned their smiles into stone. Lena Halbrook is to receive the entirety of the Halbrook estate, including property, assets, and controlling interest in Halbrook International. I thought it was a joke. Gavin actually laughed. Check again, Paul. Paul adjusted his glasses. It's legitimate. Signed and notarized 3 weeks ago. Elaine's face twisted like someone peeled her mask off. I don't remember much after that, just the blood rushing in my ears and a dizzy feeling in my gut. I was the sole heir. After everything, I couldn't reconcile it. The man who once screamed that I was a parasite who fed on rebellion left me everything. That night I stayed in the guest house. Too much champagne, too many glares. I watched the rain fall and tried to make sense of it all. At midnight, flames lit up the sky, Paul's house, gone in an instant. And Paul was inside, the will. Destroyed in the fire, all physical copies, just like that. And the very next morning, Elaine had a newly discovered will. Suddenly, I was the outsider again. They moved fast, a judge from the county, an old friend of the family, declared the new will valid based on missing context. No investigation. No delays. Elaine and Gavin held press conferences while I was still in shock, telling the world how tragic it was that I had misunderstood the situation. Then came the gaslighting. I was sent a psychiatrist, Dr. Morton Ellis, 50 SM, who claimed he worked with trauma victims. Turns out he was a drinking buddy of Gavin's from Yale. He said I was highly paranoid and exhibiting emotional instability. I wasn't allowed to leave the estate, doctor's orders. Just for a few weeks. For my safety, the locks on my doors changed. My emails stopped sending. People I trusted stopped answering. Only one person remained, Sophie, 29F, my childhood friend. He'd lost touch, but she showed up out of nowhere saying she heard what happened. I let her in. I was desperate for someone who remembered the real me. We laughed, cried, shared wine, but I saw her one night texting someone while in the bathroom. She didn't know I was behind her. The message read, she suspects nothing. Gavin wants to move next week. I didn't sleep at all that night. I started recording every conversation. Every room I entered, I left my phone running. I needed evidence. Something, anything, because I knew what they were trying to do. Paint me as the unhinged daughter of a dead mogul. Isolate me. Strip me of my sanity, take everything. They wanted to bury me the way they buried the will. But they didn't know the things I learned out in LA. The people I knew. The tech I'd picked up. The friends I'd made in hacking circles on Reddit and dark corners of the web. I wasn't the lost daughter they remembered. I had teeth now, too. 3 weeks later, I leaked everything. Audio recordings of Gavin admitting the will was forged. Videos of Elaine talking with Judge Whitmore about keeping the girls sedated long enough. Bank statements tying Sophie's sudden travel to a Halbrook account. I released it on r/legal advice, r true off my chest, even r pro revenge. Reddit blew up. Local news caught it next. Then CNN. The pressure cracked fast. Gavin was arrested for conspiracy to defraud. Elaine for obstruction and tampering with evidence. Judge Whitmore is under federal investigation. Sophie disappeared the same night the story broke. I assume she's in Argentina. I was dragged through hell, but I walked out of it holding the ashes of everything they burned. And in my hand, the only thing they could never steal, the truth. People ask me if I feel vindicated. If getting the estate, the company, the legacy, if that made it all worth it, no. But there's a room in the house, the old study, where my father used to read. I go there sometimes and look at his photo. I whisper, "You tried to ruin me, but you built me for war." Then I close the door and I keep walking, because revenge isn't about fire and fury. It's about walking through the ashes and never looking back. But I didn't tell you everything. Not yet. Because what really turned the tide was my breakdown, or at least, what looked like one. After the Forged will surfaced, they tried to paint me as mentally unstable. Elaine had been dropping hints in public about Lena's history with medication. Gavin whispered to journalists that I was struggling to cope with grief. And Dr. Morton Ellis, the so-called psychiatrist, pushed for me to be admitted for evaluation. It was all too well rehearsed, too coordinated, so I made a choice. I gave them what they wanted. I leaned into the act, started saying strange things out loud when I knew the staff was near, left cryptic notes, screamed at shadows, sobbed through meals. One time, I took a butter knife and dragged it across my palm, not enough to cut, just enough to make a mark and let them worry. I knew how they'd interpret it. They committed me in less than a week, but what they didn't know was that I had planned every second. The facility they sent me to, Winridge Behavioral Retreat, wasn't a hospital. It was a fortress for the rich and powerful to disappear inconvenient problems. I went in wearing a wire. A friend from LA, Maya 28F, a tech savant who goes by Rootkitwitch on Reddit, helped rig me up with a necklace that doubled as an encrypted recorder. It uploaded everything straight to the cloud, storing audio with timestamps and geotags. Within 2 days of being inside, I had my first one-on-one with Dr. Ellis. He thought I was sedated. He was smug. He started monologuing like a bad villain. "She won't last 2 weeks. If she does, we up the meds." Elaine already signed off. Gavin wants to move fast. Then he laughed. Like this wasn't a human life he was manipulating, just an annoying speed bump on his way to another country club dinner. Over the next few days, I gathered more. Conversations between Dr. Ellis and staff discussing keeping her compliant. Mentions of an off-the-books fund Gavin was funneling money into to keep the facility quiet. But then came the jackpot. Late one night, during a mandatory group therapy session, a nurse let something slip. "She'll be back in the house soon anyway. The lawyer's on her side." My pulse nearly stopped. "What lawyer?" I asked, doing my best to sound sedated. She shook her head like she'd said too much. But I didn't let it go. That night, I faked a seizure. During the chaos, I snuck into the staff records room and found it. Joseph Crane, 70M. My father's original estate attorney. Not the one who burned in the fire, Paul was just the executor. Crane had drafted an earlier version of the will. One my father kept off the books. According to Crane's file, my father stored the original copy in a secret wall safe behind the fireplace in the wine cellar, the same cellar where he died. My stomach flipped. They missed it. Getting out of Winridge wasn't easy, but I leaked the audio to Maya and had her contact a reporter I trusted. A firestorm hit within 48 hours. The press descended. I was miraculously deemed fit for release. I went straight back to the estate. Gavin and Elaine weren't home. They were in New York, giving a philanthropic interview to deflect from the online backlash. Perfect. I smashed through the brick panel behind the fireplace with a crowbar. Took 3 hours and both hands bleeding, but I found the safe. Inside were a notarized original will dated 2 weeks before my father's death, same terms as the one Paul had read, a USB stick labeled Lena, just in case. A leather journal in my father's handwriting. The journal changed everything. He wasn't trying to punish me with silence those last few years. He was protecting me. Gavin had been siphoning money from Halbrook International. Elaine was threatening to expose my past DUI to ruin my career. My father was trying to cut them out quietly to spare me the public carnage. He just ran out of time. 2 weeks later, the documentary dropped. Maya and I worked with a small film crew. We called it Inheritance, Bloodlines, and Betrayal. We aired hidden camera footage from Winridge. Audio of Dr. Ellis discussing falsifying diagnoses. Screenshots of Gavin texting someone about getting rid of the old man. Elaine's phone records showing burner numbers linked to a man who was at Paul's house the night it burned down. A final clip of me in the wine cellar, holding the will, reading aloud the last paragraph where my father called me the only one with enough clarity to carry the name forward. The fallout was instant. FBI raids. Arrests. Gavin tried to flee. He was tackled at JFK. Elaine was found in a boutique hotel in Prague and extradited. Dr. Ellis lost his license and his home. The judge from the original case is under federal indictment. They've all been charged with fraud, arson, and attempted murder. As for me, I kept the house, but I don't live in it. Too many ghosts. I turned it into a center for legal aid for victims of familial abuse and financial coercion. Every room now has someone writing their story, fighting their case, or rebuilding their life. The wine cellar. It's sealed shut, the study. Converted into a writing room, I sit there sometimes, listening to the quiet, and I smile. Because sometimes to beat monsters, you have to become a ghost. And I've never been more alive. Now it is the final update. This is the ending. My ending. Our beginning. The state used to have 20 rooms, and not one of them ever felt safe. Not when I was little. Not when I came back for the will. Not when I was fighting tooth and nail just to be believed. But now every creaking hallway and sunlit corridor has purpose again. I didn't sell it despite what everyone told me. Too many memories, too much baggage. Burn it and start fresh. But I knew this house wasn't the enemy. It just needed new blood, new breath, so I renamed it the Hearth Foundation. It's a sanctuary now. For women who have been betrayed by the people they trusted most. Family, spouses, business partners, systems. Women who were made to feel crazy, small, expendable. Women like me. We have 9 residents already. Claire, 42F, a former hedge fund manager whose husband drained her accounts and left her in debt. She now leads financial literacy workshops in the old ballroom. Nina, 28F, who escaped a cult-like tech startup where NDAs were used as weapons. She sleeps in my old bedroom now. Says it gives her good dreams. That alone makes everything worth it. Jessa and Amy, 35F and 36F, sisters who ran from an abusive uncle trying to contest their grandmother's will. We gave them the East Wing. I repurposed my father's study into a legal resource center. Pro bono attorneys come in twice a week. Therapy dogs on weekends. A full garden crew we hired from a domestic violence recovery program. And yes, there's still wine. But now it's shared over bonfires, not secrets. I don't sit in shadows anymore. I walk through every inch of this place like I own it because I do. And not just by law or title. I earned this. Every room was paid for in blood, betrayal, and survival. I didn't win this house to collect old paintings or sit on a throne made of marble and grief. I took it back to pass it on. The walls don't whisper anymore. They sing. Last week a letter came addressed to the ghost of Halbrook Manor. It was unsigned. But inside was a newspaper clipping. Elaine Halbrook denied parole. There was one word written in red ink across it, still watching. I smiled. Maybe it was Maya, my hacker friend. Maybe it was someone from Reddit. Maybe it was a woman I've never met who just needed to know the nightmare ended. And it has. I still wake up sometimes thinking I'm back in that cell at Winridge. Or in the courtroom while Gavin smirked at me like I was nothing. But the nightmares fade quickly now. Morning light in this house chases them off like fog burning in sunlight. This place isn't haunted anymore, not by ghosts, just by strength. And every woman who walks through our doors brings more of it with her. We are not victims. We are not unstable. We are not crazy, dramatic, or difficult. We are the ones who remember, and we never forget what they did. But we also never forget what we've built since. So yeah, this is the end of the story. But not the end of me, I'm just getting started.